It's the Ole One Two. Oh, yeah. It's the Ole One Two. Oh, yeah. It's the Ole One Two wrestling podcast. It's the Ole One Two. Oh, yeah. It's the Ole One Two. Oh, yeah. It's the Ole One Two wrestling podcast.
Very excited to have our guest today on the Ole One Two Pro Wrestling Podcast. 18-year veteran. Give her up for Cody Deaner. How you doing today?
Not too bad. How are you?
I'm doing good. Kind of a rainy day here in Greensboro, North Carolina. How's the weather up in Canada?
It is. We have a crazy, Texas storm that's headed here. Apparently, it's coming from Texas. It's called, a Texas low or a Texas high or something. It's headed here from Texas. And it is, freezing rain, snow. We're supposed to get, a foot of snow dumped on us tonight. So it's just a regular old day in Canada in the wintertime right now.
Yeah, I'm from North Carolina, and a foot of snow scares the hell out of me. I think it might have done that maybe once or twice ever in my life here.
Oh yeah, no, it's a common occurrence here. We're ready for that. It's old hat here.
But lots of guys give back to wrestling, give back to the sport of wrestling. But you, on the other hand, like to maybe go beyond that. You have been doing this thing at the gimmick table for 2018 with your 8x10s. Do you want to go maybe further explain what you're doing with that?
Yeah, sure. I was at a fundraiser in the middle of January, and I was brought in as one of the guests. It was a fundraiser for Special Olympics. And head table had Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Roberto Alomar and Larry Murphy, a bunch of NHL, Major League Baseball, and then they always bring in a wrestler or two, and they had Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, and they also invited me to come. And one of the parts of this whole thing was a silent auction, and there's this amazing local artist here who does these caricatures, these cartoon caricatures, and he did a caricature of every single person that was at the event. So he's got this awesome picture of Ricky Steamboat and Roberto Alomar, and he did one of me and gave me a handful of these things and said, here, hand these out to kids at shows. If you're at a charity show like this, feel free to give these away to some kids. I kind of didn't really think anything of it. I just said thank you. And then I got home and I started thinking, these are really good art pieces. He did a really good job on all these, spent hours doing these caricatures, and I thought I can do more with this rather than just give it to a handful of kids. The concept and idea for Giver for Charity just came to me within 10 minutes, and I went online, I wrote a press release, I recorded a video, I did all of it within a span of half an hour. And this idea that this came to me was, I can just print out a whole whackload of these things myself, sell them at the merchandise table, $10 a pop. Instead of giving them away for charity, I can actually raise money for charity. And every month I can pick a different charity. I've done so many different wrestling shows and been involved with a bunch of different charities over the years that I couldn't just pick one. I thought I'll just do one every single month and pick a new charity. Ask the fans for their ideas on local charities that they'd like to see put on the list. And I've been doing it ever since. So February was the first kickoff of it. And in honor of Ricker Art and where I got the concept, it was at a Special Olympics fundraiser. I picked the Special Olympics. And in the short month of February, I only had a handful of shows in February of the short month and was able to raise $300. And I'm going to be hand delivering that money to a Special Olympics team about next week or so. And then in March, in honor of a hardcore wrestling fan of mine who's currently in a nursing home, her name's Isabel. She's 88 years old. I visited her for her birthday a couple weeks ago. And in honor of her, I'm going to be doing the March fundraising, and Giver for Charity is going to be going towards her nursing home where they're trying to raise money for safety gear for this wheelchair bike that they have for the people there at the nursing home. So I'm going to be hand delivering the money to Isabel and the staff at her nursing home. They're super excited about it. So I'm going to be picking kind of local, meaningful charities every month. And my fans have given me so many great ideas, and it's kind of inspired some other people to, get on board or do some of their own fundraising too. So just trying to spread some positive vibes, and so far it's been working amazing, and it's been accomplishing exactly what I wanted it to accomplish. So I'm super excited about it, and very happy with how it's going so far.
That's great. I just saw a CTV News piece on you. I really enjoyed it. And it mentioned that you were a librarian by day, a wrestler by night. That's pretty cool stuff. But I was wondering, has there ever been a time where you kind of pushed the limits on that? Maybe had like a Sunday night booking, and you kind of showed up late Monday morning, or is there? Or have you always played it
all
safe?
The time.
Yeah,
all the time. Yeah. So the piece didn't really have time. It was a 3-minute piece. People feel free to go over to my Twitter, my Instagram, or my Facebook. I've got links to the piece up there. CTV, for people that are in North Carolina or maybe don't know, CTV is one of the biggest news networks across the nation of Canada, and they did this amazing 3-part series on independent wrestling, and they wanted to do a full piece on me and kind of my life. They thought my life story was an interesting one. I've been involved in the teaching profession in some form for the last decade, but I've never had a full-time contract teaching position because my dream isn't and wasn't to be a teacher. My dream since the age of 5 was to be a professional wrestler. So I've been offered full-time contract positions and turned them down. So I just take short-term contracts if they come my way, or I just do substitute teaching. I do it part-time to keep my wrestling schedule open. So right now, I'm in a library right now, but I don't just work in a library. I teach English, I teach social science, I teach psychology, I teach history. I've taught so many different things. And right now I find myself in a pretty sweet spot in the library, but it's temporary. I'm not sure how long that'll last, but it's temporary on purpose because it gives me flexibility and time to pursue wrestling. So that didn't get into that in the piece, but that's kind of the story behind that. But yes, there's many times where I've had a late night Sunday booking, or even something where I had to fly in late on a Sunday, and I get home, try to get a couple hours of shut-eye, and then I'm up and back at work the next day, hobbling into work. And the students can always tell when their teacher's been wrestling, 3-4 matches the weekend before, because I come hobbling in the classroom, and it definitely shows.
So they're pretty aware of what you do outside the classroom?
Yeah, when there's been a lot of time that I've spent in my teaching career actually teaching adults in the adult ed world. So these are people that kind of had a rough life and for whatever reason didn't graduate high school the first time around, so they're back in school. Some of these people, I've taught 65-year-olds that finally coming back to school after years of just wanting to come back. So it's adults that, whether it's drug problems or had to take care of their family or whatever, they're kind of this is their second chance at life, and I get to teach them. So whenever I teach adults, I'm extremely open about my career. I tell them all about it the first day, and I use it as a motivational kind of tactic and tell them, like, look, guys, my dream when I was a kid was to be a professional wrestler, and a lot of people told me I couldn't do it, and I'm doing it now. And there's probably a lot of people that have told you that you can't, be anything in life, and you're not going to be able to get your grade 12 education and get your high school diploma and go on and get the job you want. But I'm here telling you that you can. So I'm very open with my students about it, and actually just started the last couple of years going around doing motivational speaking as well, and telling that side of my story to try to motivate people to follow their dreams. So I'm very open with it with my students and let them know. So yeah, I use it as a motivational tool mostly.
That's awesome. So you said you teach adults, but when you're teaching kids, what wrestling shirts do you see them mainly wear? Like what's popular with the kids nowadays?
In terms of what? Sorry, wrestling shirts?
Yeah, like I was just wondering, like, I'm a lot of adults kind of stay in their world, give the 5-star ratings to all these matches, but people kind of forget that there's this whole other, like childhood world.
Right. Sure. Yeah. Well, I just actually talked to a student today who didn't know I was a wrestler until they saw the news piece that was on TV last night, and she came up to me and she was all nervous. She goes, "Oh, you're a wrestler?" "Yeah." And I said, "Oh, you're a wrestling fan? Who's your favorite wrestler?" And she goes, "Well, I watch New Japan Wrestling."
Oh.
And I was like, "Really?" So we had this quick little discussion about New Japan, the New Japan product, and she was totally into it, and that blew me away, because usually, when I talk to a younger kid, I mean, this girl she wasn't super young, she was 15 years old, but usually they say, "Oh yeah, I know Rey Mysterio, I know John Cena," and they kind of give a couple of those names, but this girl was an extensive hardcore fan in New Japan, so I thought that was pretty cool. But usually when I'm in talking to kids, sometimes I go and I do motivational speaking in elementary schools, and there's kindergarten kids, 5 years old, kids there, and they all know John Cena and Roman Reigns and the WWE product, and some of them might have a John Cena shirt on or something, and they know kind of the major guys, which is cool. It reminds me of when I was 5, and I always tell them, the original guy, he's way better than John Cena. The man is Hulk Hogan, and I tell them about me being a Hulkamaniac when I was 5 years old. But it's cool because I see myself in these kids. John Cena is the modern day Hulk Hogan to these kids, and it's pretty cool to talk to them and to see that.
Yeah, I can imagine. How did you go from that 5-year-old kid to Derek Wild's training school? How did you get involved in wrestling?
Oh, that's a long story, and I don't have time to go into the whole thing, but I can give you kind of the nuts and bolts of it. Essentially, like I said, I was a Hulkamaniac, and it was always my dream to get into professional wrestling. And as a young Canadian kid, once I started to do my research kind of led me to the Hart School of Wrestling in Calgary, and I thought that was my only option. So that was the plan, was to go train in Calgary with the Harts. My dad nixed that and said, "You're not going to wrestling school. You're going to go to university because your grades are too good. And if you want to be a professional wrestler after university, you can do that." So I was kind of bummed, but I kind of made a deal with my dad that, hey, if I find a wrestling school that's local, can I go now? And luckily I came across Derek Wild School, and I was also very lucky that Derek Wild was an amazing trainer, was a stand-up guy, and there was an amazing group of guys, because there's too many stories out there of guys getting conned and scammed by these guys that say they're professional wrestlers. They have no idea what they're doing. So that's one advice I always give to young wrestlers when they ask me for advice. I say, make sure you go to a credible, reputable school. If your trainer has done nothing in wrestling, you don't even know who he is, consider going to a different one. But I'd been to a bunch of local independent shows, and Derek Wild was on those shows, and he was one of my favorite wrestlers on the shows. Very skilled, amazing performer. So I lucked out and found a good one, and started training at the ripe young age of 18. I was in my last year of high school, and I had my first professional wrestling match when I was still in my last year of high school. And it's been a crazy road ever since.
That's awesome. And then in 2004, you had the chance to work a little bit with WWE. You wrestled Muhammad Hassan and Kurt Angle on SmackDown. I can imagine you were doing much smaller shows before that. What surprised you about seeing such a big production?
Yeah, you hear about it. I talked to guys like Tyson Dukes and other guys that had done the WWE tryouts, and you just hear from guys, that it's this big production, and you can't fathom how much goes in to a WWE show, and the backstage with the cameras and the producers and just the pyro and the set and the multiple rooms. They turn the whole backstage just into this whole, just their makeshift circus studio for the night. You can't even describe it or fathom it until you see it. And then when you do see it, mean, you respect it all over again. Usually guys like myself, I went to my tryout with the utmost respect for the company and the performers that were there. But once you see what is involved to produce a Monday Night Raw, man, it's just unreal. You can't even describe it to somebody. You have to see it. So yeah, that was something that was definitely different than, a local independent show. Going from that to a WWE show, it's a whole other world.
And for most people listening and everything who haven't had that opportunity, you were in the gorilla position. What was going through your head right before you came out that curtain?
Well, I wasn't nervous. I mean, I was nervous in the sense that I had some butterflies, but like the good nerves, I wasn't like nervous and, clamming up and not wanting to go out there. I was just jacked. I was excited and I was confident. And then right before I went out the curtain, I look to my right and I see the monitor up on the screen, and it has Kurt Angle standing in the ring, cutting a promo. And then it just kind of dawned on me, like, I'm going to be on that monitor in a second. And then I look to the side of the monitor, and there's Vince McMahon sitting there watching the monitor. And then it dawns on me that I'm going to be on that monitor in front of 4 million people, and Vince McMahon's going to be watching me as well. So I started to kind of psych myself out for a second, and I'm like, nope, I can do this. I know what I'm doing. I'm prepared. This is what I was made to do, and kind of got myself jacked up again, and then got to go ahead and went out and went to work, did my business. And when I came back through the curtain, back into the grill position, I got some pats on the back, and I was about to go to the locker room, and then all of a sudden I hear Cody, and I turn around, and Vince McMahon stands up from behind the desk in the grill position and walks towards me. And in that moment, all I could think of was like, oh crap, what did I do wrong? Yeah. I have Mr. McMahon walking towards me, doing that Vince McMahon walk that he does, and I'm thinking, oh crap, I'm screwed. And he walks towards me. Before I can leave the gorilla position, he puts out his hand and he says, "Thank you. You did an amazing job tonight." And shook my hand. And I was, wow, I couldn't have asked for a better response than that. So that was amazing.
Yeah, that's crazy. That sounds like everything you'd want from an experience like that.
Yeah, it was my first WWE tryout. I got a dark match, competitive dark match. 8 to 10 minutes. I got a spot on television with Olympic gold medalist. I, got thanked by the owner of the company and told that I did a good job. It was all positive, all good. You couldn't have asked for a better 2 days in my first WWE tryout, for sure.
For sure. And you're a father of 2. I was wondering, what do they think about wrestling? Do they like it?
Actually, I'm a father of 3.
Oh.
With a 4th on the way. So,
okay, sorry about that.
Yeah,
congratulations.
Yeah, I'm crazy. I'm crazy. My friends say that I'm insane with a 4th on the way, but I haven't taken them to too many wrestling shows. Actually, they've only kind of seen me at an event a handful of times, and we have a family day holiday up here in Canada. It's called Family Day. It was a couple weeks ago, and for Family Day, actually, I had an event, a Rock Solid Wrestling show. It was a sold-out building for Family Day. They packed this place, and it was Family Day, and I want to spend it with my family, so I brought my entire family to the show, and got in the ring with them. It was the first time I've actually ever been in the ring with my kids and rolling around with them, and they were super excited, and I was a champion and everything, and it was great. But because I haven't been to too many shows with my kids, I didn't think to tell them what was going to happen that night. And that night, unfortunately, Daddy was going to be losing the championship belt. Oh. So I smartened them up to wrestling in the sense that, Daddy's okay. Daddy doesn't get hurt. So they weren't upset, seeing me get, slammed and, suplexed and punched and everything. That was fine. But when I lost the belt, it was waterworks. They were the tears were flowing, and they were so distraught. And I felt like such a jerk, the scene in Beyond the Mat when Mick Foley comes to the back and his kids are crying because they saw Daddy get hit with a chair. I felt like that. It was obviously not that dramatic. I just lost a belt. I didn't get hit with a chair 15 times in the head, but I felt like that. I felt like that might as well have happened because my actions caused my kids to just cry their eyes out. So my wife, she consoled me and said, it's okay, they're going to be fine. And I sat down and had a talk with them, and they ended up being okay. And I had to bribe them because I actually have a couple belts at home because I'm a champion in multiple companies. So I said, it's okay, Daddy still got a belt at home and we can play with it when we get home. So we got home and I let them play with one of my other championship belts. So they ended up being okay. But they love wrestling. They're not hardcore fans. I don't watch a lot of wrestling at home with them. I watch Paw Patrol and all the typical kid shows with them rather than the wrestling. But they like what Daddy does, and they understand that Daddy and Cody Deaner are two separate people, and I kind of have this double life. They've grown up with it, and that's all they know. So they're awesome. I couldn't ask for better kids.
That's great. And if someone wanted to reach out to you to talk to you, or maybe give you a charity to give those 8x10s out for, how would they reach you on the internet?
Yeah, if you go to CodyDeaner.com, all of my socials are on there. So my Twitter is on there, which is @CodyDeaner. Instagram is @CodyDeaner. My Facebook page is Facebook.com/CodyDeaner. And then my booking email for people to get a hold of me, whether it's a fan or a promoter that wants to book me or somebody wants to book me for a motivational speech, that's Cody_Deaner @hotmail.com. So if you go to CodyDeaner.com, all of that's there, and that's kind of the spot where you can get all that info.
Really enjoyed talking to Cody. Super nice guy. How about that 15-year-old girl who was into New Japan? That was kind of a cool story. If you stick around after the episode today, there's going to be a Teddy Hart story that I find kind of cool. But before that, we go from librarian/wrestler to tattoo artist/wrestler with my interview with Shannon Moore. How's it going, everybody? This is Jake Grondy here for the Ole One Two Pro Wrestling Podcast. And just to let everyone know, I'm a moron, and I'm sure everyone listening is a moron today because we have former WCW Hardcore Champion Shannon Moore. How you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. Just me and Lindsay Snow, my tag team partner, and we're in a tattoo shop in North Carolina with another artist, Tanya Schilling, and we are here. Lindsay is doing some tattooing while we're here for 3 days, and that's about what's going on right now. There's a lot going on.
Sure.
Too much to accomplish.
Recently, WWE brought back the Cruiserweight title and gave the weight class its own show, 205 Live and everything. Have you gotten a chance to see that show?
The WWE Cruiserweight 205 show? Yeah, man. None of those guys are ready for me, man. I got too much knowledge. Like, me and Shane Helms, man, we come into WCW. We were the original Cruiserweights in WCW, so that 205 Live, there ain't nobody there ready for that.
For WCW, you guys, well, not Shane Helms, but the Hardys, Joey Mercury, Steve Corino, you were all a part of Omega. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, Omega was our founding group. Me, Matt, and Jeff, we pretty much started, and we got it running in North Carolina. It turned into a pretty big promotion. Like, we had a big cult following. Like, that's pretty much, I guess, how our careers really took off was just from our brainchild, which was Omega. We were doing stuff, man, like Ray and Chavo and all those guys, whenever WCW first brought them in, man, we were doing stuff, and, we wasn't copying nobody. We was coming up with a lot of original stuff in Omega. Like, we were having rope matches with titles hanging from ropes and swinging all over arenas, with we had all kinds of crazy stuff, man. We always thought out of the box, and that's what really, I guess, labeled us different from any other promotion in North Carolina.
WCW 2000 was more it's not looked at fondly, I guess, in the history books, but that was big for you guys. I mean, how do you look at WCW in the 2000s?
Man, I thought WCW was great. Like, it was, you know, for the time, like, being 19 years old and making good money and living my dream, WCW is good to me. Eric Bischoff was, like, the whole team. Like, I can't complain at all about WCW. Like, it was great.
That's awesome. Yeah, and you guys were in 3 count, of course, at the time. And you guys were wrestling, like you mentioned, Rey Mysterio earlier. Rey Mysterio, Muta. I mean, even guys like DDP, Nash, Chava, of course. This must have been, you know, kind of crazy for you, you know, emulating them and kind of using their style to make your own and now going against them.
Yeah, that was our whole thing. Like, we always tried to just have a multi-style wrestling, not just one style. Like, I was a fan of Lucha Libre and like the Japanese style, but we always tried to mix a little bit of everything together and just kind of come up with our own style.
For sure. And then because you were in WCW, you were, of course, there for the last Nitro, Ray and Kidman versus the Young Dragons versus you and Evan Courageous. This was like probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, nights in wrestling history. Maybe describe how the feeling was backstage, maybe coming into the arena. Did you have any clue of what was going on? I was glad to be part of that last show. Like, just being on that card was, you know, because that was history in the making. But flying home from there, like, shit, I didn't know if I was going to have a job or not, so it wasn't that sweet. Hell yeah. And then, then you went on to, you know, of course, WWF. Was that a culture shock going from WCW to WWF? Were things a little different?
No, I already knew a lot of the guys there just from passing on the road with WCW, so like, I was already friends with a lot of the guys. So it wasn't really no big deal. Like, it was a big deal because I always wanted to work for WWE too, but like, it was kind of cool, you know, knowing that they bought my contract and that I would get an opportunity there. But as far as the guys go, I was always pretty comfortable and got along with everybody.
That's great. You were brought onto Smackdown, and you got the opportunity to wrestle a lot of like big WrestleMania stars of the day when they were just starting out. Like, you worked a lot with John Cena. How was it working with John Cena as young as he was at the time?
Yeah, John was cool, man. I always got along with him. Like, I was working with him whenever his prototype, so I think that was his name back then, or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah. And then watching him evolve into the Cena character, like, that was pretty cool. You know, like, he worked hard for it. You know, like, he did his thing, man. Like, he worked hard, and, you know, he deserves what he's got today. Like, I guess if you work that hard, like, there's no choice but to say that he deserves it. Like, you can't deny the fact, no matter what he does in the ring, you know? For
sure. And you also had a match with Brock Lesnar. JR mentions that he was kind of difficult to work with during this time. How was he during that match, and do you remember wrestling Brock?
Actually, yeah, I wrestled Brock for about a month straight. Brock, me and Brock was friends, and I worked hard for Brock to make, you know, I didn't have to make him look good. Like, he was going to look good no matter what. But, you know, like, we worked well together, and, like, we got along, like, still to this day, like, just to, you know, me and Brock's friends. You know, there was one point where they were going to make big cuts, and just because I did certain things for Brock and I was willing to go to the office and say, you know, like, I'll do this or do that. Like, I love that. I love working with the bigger guys and actually using my athletic ability to make them look like $1 million.
You went down to TNA during 2006, and around this time, the X Division was really separating itself, kind of like the Cruiserweight division did in WCW. Did you notice anything different from guys like, you know, AJ Styles and Sanjay Dutt versus, you know, Kidman and Ray, or did they kind of all have the same drive?
No, they had the same drive, man. Like, these guys, you know, AJ, he's a generation behind me. And, you know, I worked with AJ when he was just breaking into the business. So, like, and then seeing him where he was in TNA and seeing him in that, you know, main event spot. And I actually got to work with AJ for a while in that main event spot in TNA. We were actually going to go a lot longer, but I started I guess, playing politics and trying to make as much money as I could. So I ended up leaving and going back to WWE, which, you know, like, it sucks because I really enjoyed, you know, playing that main event role with AJ, because it's a different style of wrestling whenever you wrestle in a main event, and whether you wrestle in a cruiserweight or an X division match. Like, it's two different psychologies. So it was fun to actually, you know, play the game with AJ for a while in that role.
Yeah, of course, it makes sense going to the WWE, getting, you know, more money. But when you went, the cruiserweight division was kind of made more of comedy. Like Hornswoggle was getting really popular. You kind of hinted at it. Do you now, looking back, hindsight being 2020, do you regret? Do you think you should have stayed in TNA?
No, I don't regret. You know, I really don't regret nothing. Like, I try to make try to think, I guess, think about how the book's going to end. And at that point, like, money was more important to me, you know, as far as where my life was. So I needed to go back to WWE, but I was a little pissed off at the fact that the cruiserweight division was just made pretty much a comedy thing with Hornswoggle, because, like, you just can't even take that shit serious. And, you know, just watching him, but it wasn't his fault. He was just running what they were giving me. But at the same time, watching, you know, the cruiserweight division, which is something that, you know, I've prided myself on since I started wrestling, was actually loving being a cruiserweight and called a cruiserweight. Like, just watching that kind of be pushed to the wayside and then eventually got written up. Like, it bothered me a lot.
Yeah, I can imagine. What were veterans like Chavo thinking at the same time? I mean, they were they were the centerpiece of the storyline, but they were also, you know, losing and made to look like kind of like a comedy character. Do you recall any frustrations coming from him?
Well, not personally. Like, you know, it is what it is. Like, you just gotta listen to the boss. But, you know, you can't have your personal, I guess, opinions about what's going on. I'm sure Chavo is old school too, man. Like, you know, like, I guess the way that we believe the cruiserweight division should work and the way that it should go was totally different than what they were seeing at the time. But, you know, it's not our company. We really can't force the matter whenever it comes to stuff like that. You just kind of got to be professional and do the best you can do with what you got.
For sure. And then you went back to TNA again but this was when, like, Hogan and Bischoff were taking over. They were, I think, at one point competing, like, on Monday night, same time slot as the WWE. You mentioned that there was the same drive from X Division to Cruiserweight. Did you kind of see that the same drive from that Nitro era into TNA at this time?
Nah, because I went back with a different mindset this time. Because that was, you know, I went back, me and Jeff Hardy, we decided to go back. That happened on the Hulkamania tour. Hogan ran a tour in Australia. And, you know, I was on that. And, you know, I hung out with Hogan a lot on that tour, and he was talking about going into TNA and doing some reconstructing and stuff. And, you know, like, I wanted to be part of it just because Bischoff was going to have his hand in it. And, you know, Bischoff, he's brilliant when it comes to wrestling. And I just wanted to be a part of it because Bischoff's the one who actually gave me my break. Like, if it wasn't for Bischoff, I never would have got an opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned that you hung out with Hulk Hogan a lot on this tour. I have to ask, how was it like hanging out with the Hulkster? What did you guys do?
I've known him for a while, man. You know, since I first got into WCW, and I was Jimmy Hart's boy. Like, 3 Count was Jimmy Hart's brainchild. So, you know, me and Hogan, we always had a special, I guess, friendship just because Jimmy Hart, you know, we were Jimmy's boys. And if you're Jimmy's boys, you're Hogan's boys. And, you know, like, Hogan's always treated me great. And, you know, to this day, like, if I see him, I consider him a friend, and I'm sure he would say the same.
That's cool. That's awesome. And I mean, the later years, you mentioned that you're opening up the tattoo shop. You still wrestle. You still do a lot of indies and everything against, you know, guys like Jason Cade, Eli McFly. Do you see any guys in the indies that, like, you see that same drive that was in the Cruiserweight division, WCW, the X division? Are there some guys that we should look out for in the indies?
Honestly, man, like, I don't know. I see the indies, like, just kidding. I don't know. There's a lot of people, like, doing the Young Buck thing. Like, you know, the Young Bucks made that style of wrestling special that, just, I guess, more spots and entertainment than anything. Like, those guys took something and actually made it work for them. But now, like, everybody's just trying to copy that. And, like, whenever I go on indies, like, I see a lot of people just copying a lot of stuff like the Young Bucks did, which they made it their gimmick, copying people whenever they were doing the NWO stuff and making fun of Shawn, Kevin Nash. And, like, now it just seems like everybody's trying to do that because they've seen the Young Bucks be successful with it. And, not just the Young Bucks, like, there's, as far as the, I guess the Bullet Club, like, you just see a lot of people trying to imitate stuff. And it's just people, I hope, like, in the future, people just start, I guess, going back to more of an old school feel and character driven, I guess, wrestling. Like, that's what I'm a fan of. And I just kind of focus on me now, man. Like, I had to take some time off, like, just for some personal reasons, and, like, just being back healthy and getting back on the road, like with Lindsay. Having my tag team partner, which is, I guess, my real life partner and business partner. He's my partner in crime. Like, we're able to travel and stuff now, and just do the tattoo thing, do the wrestling thing, and just kind of have fun with it now. Like, that's my main objective, is not just overwork myself whenever I do get to go wrestle places, actually take a breath and visit the places that are wrestling.
If we were trying to get tattooed in the Carolinas, what's the name of your shop?
It's Gas Chamber Tattoos in Carthage, North Carolina. They come to Carthage and you ask where Gas Chamber is at. I'm pretty sure you'll find it. Or you can check it out. Just go to at the Shannon brand on Twitter, and you can get all the info there. Yeah, and I'm on Instagram too, like Gas Chamber Tattoo.
Awesome. And what shows are you hitting up on WrestleMania weekend if people are traveling down trying to see you?
Well, we're going to be at WrestleCon, I guess. We're scheduled to be there for a few days. Everything should be worked out with that, but we're going to be there for a few days doing a signing. And between now and then, I've got some contacts waiting on just, I guess, money arrangements and stuff like that to see how many shows we do or what we end up doing there. But we're going to have our tattoo equipment there, too, and tattoo a few people, probably.
Oh, nice. I appreciate you jumping on. If someone wants to talk to you online, how can they reach you?
Just check me out on Twitter, man, the Shannon brand. That's about it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Cool. Thanks, man.
It's actually the first time and only time I've met Teddy Hart was at a show in Buffalo. There used to be these ballpark brawl shows in Buffalo where the owner of the AAA baseball team, the Buffalo Bison, his name was Christopher Hill. He was an awesome guy. He was a huge wrestling fan, and he would run a wrestling show at the ballpark every year. And he brought in Teddy Hart one year, and Teddy Hart was going to end up being wrestling my trainer, Derek Wild. Both of us were there, and Derek Wild kind of came over to me, and he's like, "Oh man, this Teddy Hart, he's a nice guy, but he's just not all there. He's a different cat, and he has some crazy ideas, and I can't tell if he's joking or what." And so I was like, I gotta watch this. I gotta watch this match, and I'm watching on the monitor, and they fight to the outside, and afterwards, Derek Wild just told me all he said was, "Catch me," and he started climbing. And they're fighting on the outside of the ring, and they go over to, the netting for where the foul ball is, and he starts climbing the netting, and he climbs up onto this ledge that had to be at least 30 feet in the air. He climbs up onto this thing. It was kind of part of the dugout, but even higher than the dugout, much higher than the dugout. It was 30 feet in the air, and he just climbs. He just tells Derek, "Catch me," and he goes up the top and does a moonsault off of this thing, flying through the air. And my trainer, Derek, was like, "Holy crap." And, what do I do? I wasn't ready, and it's just 30 feet in the air, and he's coming flying down. So he does his best to kind of get under him. Teddy lands on his feet because he's an amazing athlete. But as soon as he lands on his feet, all you hear is, pop. And he just blows out his ankle. Bang! And he's screaming and hollering and yelling and swearing up a storm, and the crowd is like, what the hell's going on? And they go into the ring, and there's a couple other funny things, but I won't divulge that because I'm kind of old school in terms of kayfabe, but there's a couple other weird, crazy spots that Teddy had planned, but I just remember coming to the back and going, asking, Derek, was that planned? And he goes, nope. All he said was, catch me. And for the rest of the night, Teddy was in true Teddy form at the autograph signing afterwards, saying how much he loved Jesus and was protected by Jesus in that moment, but also threw the F-bomb every other word while saying that Jesus loved him and blessed him. So Teddy Hart is just a character, man. That's my first time I ever met Teddy. Hopefully, I think I'm going to be running into him again and a show in Oshawa in a couple weeks. So I'm going to talk to Teddy and see if he remembers that crazy moonsault that he did off the netting in Buffalo. Man, it's probably 10 years ago now.
Well, hopefully there's a ceiling in the building that night. So
yeah, I'm sure Teddy will find something high to flip off of. It's kind of his gimmick. So we'll see what's in the venue in the next couple of weeks.